Hello everybody, it's me, the Lego Dude, and in today's live stream we'll be doing part 2 of yesterday's live stream, and we'll finish building the Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle. This will of course be a continuation of yesterday's build, which we almost completed, and today we'll be building the final 2 bags of this set. After we finish building the final 2 bags of Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle, we'll also be talking about some brand new 2026 LEGO Star Wars leaks, which we've recently gotten in the past few days. This will be a preview of those new set leaks, which I'll be talking about in the live stream here, of course, after which I'll also be posting a video about the leaks. So we'll be getting started with finishing up the build in about a minute or so. I'll just wait for a minute so that people have time to join into the live stream as it starts. Welcome everybody who's in the live stream chat, and to everybody watching, thank you for watching. So as of now, we've completed the main body of Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle and one of the wings. What's left for us to do is to finish building the other wing and to finish building the cockpit. I'll be angling down the camera while we build this set so that you can all have a better angle of the build. So of course, like usual, this will also be a Q&A while I'm building this set. So if anyone has any questions, you can ask them in the chat. And of course, I almost forgot to add in our background music. I'll go do that right now. We now have our background music playing while we build the Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle. If your music is too loud or too quiet, make sure to let me know in the chat so I can adjust the volume. Thank you for tuning into the live stream. Yes, I've made sure to add the background music in for today. Unfortunately, I forgot to add it in for yesterday's live stream, so there were stretches where it was uncomfortably quiet while I was building for up to 10 minutes or more. So I've made sure to add in the background music so that everything's going on while I'm So here it appears that we're building the second wing of the Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi shuttle. It shouldn't take too much work, as it's similar to the first wing. It's probably going to be just in the opposite direction, similarly easy to build, unlike the more centralized part of the shuttle, which had a more complex build to it. And we just updated the angle there a little bit, so we have a more close-up look at the build. Hello, welcome to the live stream. I'm glad you're able to tune in, Kai Selena. Well, it appears once again I've made some building mistakes. This should actually go here. Looks like we're going to be needing the invaluable brick separator to split these pieces apart. LSOB Hip Hop asks, did you get any pics of what went wrong with the build out yesterday for reference? Unfortunately, I did not get any pictures of the mistakes I was making when I was building yesterday. However, it is all documented on the live stream, which I put up yesterday. So if I do need to go back and check that, then that is available for me to go check back. Kai Selena asks, what was the first Attack of the Clones set? I'm not exactly sure what the first set based off Attack of the Clones was. However, the first year where sets released based off Attack of the Clones was 2002, if I remember correctly. Several of them came out at the exact same time, though, so I'm not sure it would be correct to characterize it as what was the first Attack of the Clones set. It would be more apt to say what was the first wave of Attack of the Clones sets, if that answers your question. Unfortunately, though, I do not remember what the wave of Attack of the Clones sets was in 2002, though. I do have a video planned, though, to place all the 2002 LEGO Star Wars sets from worst to best, which has been on the list for quite a long while now. That has just been pushed back by other worst to best lists and other more urgent LEGO Star Wars leaks. I am planning to get that out soon, though. I finished worst to best lists for 1999, 2000, and 2001 so far, along with some more recent years like 2022, 2023, and 2024. So I'm looking at making sure to get every year in LEGO Star Wars completed with ranking them all from worst to best. Welcome, LEGO Timmy. It's great to see you in the stream. Thank you for tuning in. Right now, we are building Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle. We are so far on bag 5. The previous 4 bags were built on yesterday's stream. Thank you for tuning in to watch. I appreciate it very much. And thank you to everybody else watching as well. We have 8 viewers in the stream today. Of course, just for a quick rundown about the agenda after we finish building the shuttle, I'll also be taking a look at the 2026 brand new LEGO Star Wars leaks the past few days. And I'll be answering questions, which everybody can ask now. And then I also had a couple of questions previously asked in comments, which I'll also be answering at the end of the stream. Any questions asked now, though, will be answered right now while we're building out the shuttle. We have a question. Have LEGO ever made a set with a lot of minifigures? Yes, LEGO have made a couple of sets with a very large amount of minifigures. For example, they made the MBS Mos Eisley Cantina several years ago in 2022, if I remember correctly, which had over 30 minifigures, including many obscure characters from the Mos Eisley Cantina we otherwise would have probably never gotten in any set. So it's very, very good to see many of them released in that set. It was also great to see, of course, Dr. Evazan and Ponda Baba released in that set, which is the first time we ever got them. They're two of A New Hope's most iconic minor characters, so it was good to see them in LEGO for the first time ever. LSOB Hip Hop asks, do you have a display area or do you have to break them down for storage? Well, depending on the situation per set, if a set is small enough, then I can either leave it out or I can easily put it away in its box. However, with a set like the Ahsoka's T6 Jedi Shuttle, I'll likely have to store it in its box and then take it out whenever it's necessary to do something with it. Yes, guys, your comment up on the screen at the moment. What about the Avengers Tower set? Yes, the Lego Marvel Avengers Tower had a great many minifigures, if I remember correctly, because I did make a couple videos on it back when it released a couple years back. It had over 30 minifigures, which is something often seen in many Lego sets for most themes. So we have now completed this wing of the Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle, so we'll be attaching that now. We have now attached the second wing, and it now appears that we just have some stability issues to handle with these pieces left over from bag 5. We have 12 viewers in the stream right now. Welcome to everybody who has just joined in the stream. We are currently finishing up building Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle, and I appreciate everybody who's tuned in to watch. It appears we are now almost done with Bag 5. We just have one last section to go, and then we only have the cockpit left to build of the Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle. Now that this has been safely secured, we are done with Bag 5 of the Ahsoka Tano's T6 Shuttle. We have completed both wings, and we will now move on to the cockpit. We have a couple more questions in the chat from Kai Selena, who asks, what was the weirdest Star Wars Lego set? The weirdest Star Wars Lego set, I would say, is probably the Anakin Starfighter based off the 2002 2D Star Wars Clone Wars TV show. That set was, there was basically nothing in that would ever. And of course, it released in 2010 or the late aughts or the early 2010s, if I remember correctly. And of course, the starship itself in the TV show is just a very weirdly shaped ship. So of course, Lego also transitioned to being weirdly shaped. So if I had to, it would be that set. From LSOB Hip Hop, we have the question: how do you keep dust off the display sets you have? Well, for the most part, I try not to display sets because I don't have too much of an effective way to keep a bunch of sets on display dust-free. So what I'll do is I'll store them and then periodically take them out to wipe them off for dust. We are currently at 8 viewers in the stream. Welcome to everybody once again who is just tuned in. Now, unfortunately, the issue with the cockpit that it looks like we're going to run into is that it was designed extremely small for this set. Previous Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle, the body was a little bit bigger, which did make sense, of course, since the set cost more. However, the key thing about that set was the cockpit was big enough to fit all of the minifigures it had, or at least most of the minifigures it had. Well, after we finish building this cockpit here for this set, it will only be able to fit one minifigure, that being Ahsoka, leaving 3 other minifigures with pretty much nowhere to put them. Hu Yang, of course, can probably fit inside the innards of the ship if you make sure to fit him in correctly, because there is a secret compartment which we will get to talking about later. However, other than that, the other 2 minifigures, Darth Merrick and Sabine Wren, will have nowhere to go on the ship, which is disappointing. It appears that once again we're going to need the trusty brick separator. Always comes in handy. I would recommend, if you don't have one, to make sure that you can find one and have it on hand. It's always good for taking apart pieces. Any piece you think you can easily remove with your hands, you can probably remove it even easier with a brick separator. So it's definitely useful to have it. Especially if you have trouble with accidentally misdoing steps and then having to undo them, like I usually do whenever I'm live streaming or just building a Lego. We have another question from Kai Selena. What was the weirdest Lego Star Wars minifigure? I'm not sure I have much of an answer for this because there's none I can really think of. However, if I do remember correctly, I do think that they included well, if we're including buildable characters, of course, then I would have to go with the Blurg back a couple years back. I don't recall what set it was in exactly, but it looked absolutely hilarious. So if I was able to choose a buildable character as well, then I'd go with the buildable Blurg. Next up, we have a question from Force Frame. He asks, got any stop motion ideas for a Clone Trooper figure? I'll tag you when I make it. Stop motion ideas for a Clone Trooper minifigure. I'd go with Captain Rex if you have Captain Rex, of course. A good stop motion, I think, would just be Captain Rex and maybe a few other 501st Troopers taking down possibly an Octotora Tri-Droid and some normal droids like they did in the Clone Wars during the Battle of Christophsis. I think that would be an interesting stop motion to make, and if you were to make that, of course, I would take a look at it when you're done making it. I'm not completely sure how to set up reactions with the live stream. However, if I were able to end up figuring that out, then that would be something I'd be looking at reacting to on the channel as well, which would be interesting. I have been thinking about making reactions on live streams to other Lego YouTube videos, such as stop motions and the like, but I'm not exactly sure how to organize that yet. Once I have that figured out, though, then it is something that I'd be looking at churning out with the YouTube channel. So we now have 8 viewers in the stream. Just a few seconds ago, we had 11. Welcome everybody to everybody who's watching. Okay, we have Force Frame again making a comment. I use the Black Series figs. I'm a new collector, but I've been making stop motions for a while, so I don't have many figs, but I will try and do it if I remember. No worries, Force Frame. Black Series, of course, are very interesting. The very interesting action figures that Hasbro makes, very very detailed. Of course, my channel is focused on Legos. However, I do have a good admiration of the Black Series characters, which I'll sometimes use examples in videos whenever I don't have available pictures for the actual characters as to what minifigures would look like at their most detailed. So, of course, since you're a new collector to Lego, no worries about not having the necessary minifigures for the stop motion. I'll still check out what other stop motions you've made and just see how it's all going along. Oh, so we have another comment from LSOB Hip Hop. Yes, I did make a stop motion for the channel called Revenge of the Sith Squared. It involved Revenge of the Sith basically taking place in Lego form, with the clone troopers executing Order 66 on the Minecraft Jedi, and then Palpatine represented by a sheep character, a sheep Lego character. Unfortunately, it appears we've dropped a piece. I'll be back in a second. We are now back from that short pause. I found the piece which was dropped. SOB Hip Hop are the Black Series. The Black Series are basically action figures made by Hasbro of many of the Star Wars characters, and they're usually quite detailed. Because of how detailed they are, sometimes I'll, for example, use them as alternatives to actual pictures of the characters to point out the more fine detailing of the characters. And for example, a couple of things Lego might be able to improve on their minifigures, which with the Black being used as that. Of course, since they are action figures and a lot bigger, they do have some details which is just impossible to include on a Lego minifigure, which is perfectly fine. However, they are still very good reference points for some things which could be improved on some minifigures. We have 9 viewers in the stream now. Welcome, everybody. We're just about around the Jedi shuttle. It appears we have an airplane passing over, so if you hear any loud background noises, that's what that is. We have another question from Kai Selena. Has there ever been an AT-AT Walker before? Yes, in fact. Lego have made at least 6 AT-AT Walkers, if I remember correctly. They made the UCS AT-AT in 2022. They made the playset AT-AT in 2020, and before that they had released at least 4 other different play scale AT-ATs, including one version released in the early 2000s, which was mechanized, able to be moved with a controller, if I remember correctly, which was a very interesting concept for LEGO, which would be interesting if they brought back again for other sets. For example, if they were to release an AT-ST two-legged walker with mechanized, that would be an interesting concept to see. Fortunately, at least, the cockpit piece included is printed, so we do not have to put on any annoying sticker onto here. Usually with the cockpit pieces, the stickers are by and large the most difficult piece to put on and always make the set look the worst. So whenever the cockpit pieces have prints instead of stickers, it's always a big positive. So now attaching on the final piece, I'm pretty sure that we are done. So yeah, so we have now completed the build for the Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle. Just adjusting the camera angle here so that we can have a better angle at this. This is the fully built Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle. The wings are able to spin around 360 degrees. And it's quite effective if I do say so myself. It's already whacked me a couple times. The cockpit has space for one minifigure, which is unfortunate. With how many minifigures there are, there should be space to put at least 3 of the 4 minifigures in here somewhere, the 3 protagonists. And the body of the ship itself is quite sturdy, including the engines. Even though they do seem a bit wobbly here, they don't feel like they're going to fall out at all. Unfortunately, of course, if you look at the ship from this angle, it looks amazing. And then if you look at the ship from this angle, just don't look at it from that angle. So it's best to display the set like this if you have it and want to display it. If you're going to play with it as well, though, then it has a lot of great playability for swooshing around. And overall, it just seems like a pretty good set. Of course, the price is very high, so I would recommend waiting until it's 20% off to get it. Otherwise, though, this is quite a reasonably good, very good LEGO set. LEGO usually do always deliver with the designs, and here, of course, once again, they have delivered with the amazing design. So we've now been live streaming for 42 minutes. I will be taking a very short intermission just so I can prepare all the things that I need for the next leg of the stream, and then after that we'll finish up. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes, everybody. Hello, everybody. We have now returned from our short intermission. Apologies about the camera angle. We just need to adjust it real quick. Well, it looks like I'll have to turn off the camera again while we adjust the angle, but I will still be here on the audio. We are, of course, still on the air right now, just adjusting the camera angle for the stream. And it appears I got it even worse now. Okay, it appears we now have it at a reasonable angle. So, getting back to the topics of the stream now, we are now going to be talking about the brand new 2020 LEGO Star Wars leaks that we've gotten in the past few days. So, kicking things off with spring, we first have the 75421 Darth Vader's TIE Advanced, which will cost $70, have 473 pieces, and release on March 1st. At first glance, it sounds extremely overpriced, and while this probably will still end up being true to an extent, it is also rumored to be one of the first LEGO Star Wars sets to use a smart brick, which if true would eat part of the cost. So basically, the concept of a smart brick is that it would make lights and sounds depending on how the set moves, which would be a fascinating concept to see implemented in LEGO Star Wars, but this will of course just push prices even higher than they already are. At least one minifigure will be included, that being Darth Vader by himself, and potentially more. Its release times well with the UCS Death Star, and while it would be amazing to see all of these classic original trilogy sets available at once, the prices definitely leave a bitter taste. For their prices, LEGO have been including less pieces that are smaller in Star Wars sets over the years, so as of now I'm skeptical of this set. Moving on to our next set, we have the 75423 X-Wing Fighter, which will cost $100, have 584 pieces, and release on March 1st. Unfortunately, this set looks even more overpriced than the TIE Advanced. With the previously mentioned shrinkage of LEGO pieces, both numerically and actually size-wise, I doubt that 584 pieces will be enough to put together an X-Wing worth $100. This set is also supposed to smart brick, which would eat some of that excess value, but the price tag still feels big. The minifigures are unknown, however I would guess we'll get at least Luke Skywalker and an R2-D2. The timing of this set's release coincides with the Death Star as well, which is likely encouragement from LEGO for an original trilogy package, so as to speak, but unfortunately the Death Star, the TIE Advanced, and the X-Wing look like they're going to be a trio of both good sets and overpriced sets. Next up we have the 75438 Yoda Bucks, which will cost $6. It'll be similar to the helmet series, but it'll include character heads instead of helmets and will go down to the shoulders. Yoda is a small being, so naturally I would expect the bust to be smaller in comparison to busts for other characters. Based off busts from other themes, it's possible there's at least one minifigure included here, which I would guess to be Master Yoda. Overall it seems cool, but it probably won't be anything too special. Next up we have the 75439 Darth Vader bust, which will cost $60. LEGO have previously made a sort of special edition Darth Vader bust, which looks solid. However, it'll be exciting seeing them taking a second shot and making one at a larger scale, which will hopefully look good and be an improvement over both the previous Darth Vader bust and the notoriously ridiculous-looking Darth Vader helmet. It also looks like it could be like it might have a minifigure, which if included, I would guess to be Darth Vader. Overall, this seems like it could be a solid set. Both of the busts we've just covered seem like they'll be good, but it'll be interesting seeing where LEGO takes this line of sets after this, especially with all the opportunities for different characters to be made as busts. Moving on to some price changes for the leaked January 2025 wave of sets, the 75437 Cobb Vanth Speeder with 207 pieces will now cost $35 instead of $30. $30 for what would likely be a large speeder didn't seem too bad in LEGO's current pricing model, but upping it up to the same price as the Jedi Interceptor is definitely going to raise some eyebrows. Next up, the 7440 AT was 125 pieces. Whoops, I misspoke there. The 75440 MIDI scale AT-AT with 525 pieces will now cost $65 instead of $60. These scales are already usually overpriced, with absurdly small pieces used in their construction, so this probably won't end up well for this set. The last price update we have is that the Siege of Mandalore Battle Pack with 116 pieces will cost $23 instead of $20. With their price hikes on this year's Summer Battle Pack from $20 to $23, I wasn't too surprised to see this happen, but seeing the price of Battle Packs raised more than 50% over the past 4 years has been an insane price hike to see. Brand new 2026 Star Wars leaks that we had to cover in today's live stream, and now I'll just on for a couple minutes answering any last minute questions anyone has in the chat, of course, and we also have a couple previous questions asked by people in my comments, which I'll also be answering here. So the first question we have up is from the conductor Esplin8092, who asks, what is my favorite LEGO helmet? Not buildable, just which helmet looks cool. So thinking about what my favorite helmet is in LEGO Star Wars, just considering any minifigure or any buildable character, I think I would probably have to go with one of either... I think I would have to go with Tech, the Clone Trooper, the helmet for Tech the Clone Trooper. Tech is my favorite LEGO Star Wars Clone Trooper minifigure, which, if you saw my every Star Wars Clone Trooper ranked from worst to best video, then you'll see I had him at number 1. And one of the reasons I had him at number 1 is because of how awesome his helmet mold is. His helmet mold was made specially for him with space on his visor so that you could see his eyes with the green goggles on them. And overall, it's just an amazing helmet mold that LEGO made for that character, which is very accurate and is also just a very awesome helmet mold. So I'd have to go with that as my favorite molded LEGO helmet, which LEGO have made before. So if there's any last second questions as well, I will make sure to answer them. But other than that, that is the only question that we had for the Q&A session. So any last second questions, make sure to bring them in so that I can answer them before we end the stream. Of course, just again, just for anyone who didn't see yesterday, I did review the Reign of the Empire, the Mask of Fear, Star Wars book. Basically, I gave it a 7 out of 10. It's a very good. Certain sections of the book are very good. At other sections, though, it does feel like a slog to get through. There are some interesting new characters interested in this book, which revolves around Bail Organa, Mothma, and Saul Guerrera, who are the 3 main characters here. There are interesting support characters introduced for who are in relation to all 3 of these characters. Some of them have interesting plot threads, some of them not so much. So have a solid book. If you have the opportunity to read it, it's a pretty decent read. So since it appears that we don't have any more questions, I am going to be ending the live stream then. I very much enjoyed talking with all of you in the chat and finishing up building the Ahsoka Tano's T6 Jedi Shuttle. When I have the opportunity to, I will make sure to review this set, which will hopefully be within a few weeks, but of course could take longer as the schedule is always in flux. So thank you to everybody who tuned into the live chat. Thank you for everybody who asked questions during the stream, and thank you to everybody who commented or just watched the stream or left a like on it. Stream. Thank you everybody, and it was a great stream.